This is a near top spec 2013 Mac Pro, also known as the Mac Pro 6,1. It's got a 12-core Intel Xeon CPU, 64GB of RAM, and dual AMD FirePro D500 GPUs. It's also got a terabyte of PCIe-based SSD storage. This high-end configuration would have cost over $8,000 new. I got this one for just £190. So is a computer like this even worth using in 2025? Well, the CPU inside is the Intel Xeon E5-2697V2. It's a 22nm chip with clock speeds of 2.7 to 3.5 GHz. It has 12 cores and 24 threads on board, making it the top CPU possible to put inside one of these Mac Pros. Despite this computer going on 12 years old now, the processor does keep up reasonably well with modern tasks and editing. It handles editing in DaVinci Resolve just fine, partly thanks to the decent AMD graphics. 4K editing isn't out of the question, although it's not the fastest to move clips around from A to B. It doesn't really hit any slowdowns in macOS Monterey either, and web browsing as well as video streaming is an absolute breeze. My slightly older version of Photoshop ran just fine with several really big files open at once. So that's all very well, but raw performance isn't everything. There are some serious CPU issues on all 2013 Mac Pros. A lot of software like 2024 or newer versions of the Adobe Creative Suite, and a fair few modern games just won't run at all on these Macs. This is because no 2013 Mac Pro processors support AVX2, which is an extension to processor instruction sets, and it just changes their coding slightly. It's a pretty complex computer science thing, and it's way above my head, but the thing you need to know is support for it was first built into Intel's Haswell chips, which launched just before the 2013 Mac Pro's release. Apple had already gone with earlier generation Ivy Bridge chips by then though, therefore many apps are losing support for this machine. Still, graphics are a different story, right? Sure. Depending on the configuration, this Pro comes equipped with AMD FirePro D300, D500 or D700 GPUs. I say GPUs because the graphics cards are installed in identical pairs on this computer. The D300 variants are the base option, with 4GB of video memory shared between them. The D500s are pretty mid-tier, with 6GB. The top spec option is the D700 pair, with a total of 12GB of video memory. These days, some GPUs you can buy off the shelf come with as little as 6 or 8GB, so this 12-year-old Mac Pro isn't too far behind in terms of memory size. Unfortunately, it is a long way back in almost every other metric. For a start, dual graphics cards became popular in the mid-2000s and probably hit their peak around 2011. Having two graphics cards was a clever way of getting great performance and staying relatively future-proof, thanks to AMD and Nvidia designing their cards ready to sit next to each other in pairs. It might have seemed like the future, but running dual graphics cards was never really a massive deal. By the 2013 Mac Pro's release, almost everyone was building computers with just one GPU inside, as it was cheaper and a lot of developers weren't building dual GPU support into their games and other sorts of software at all. So the dual cards inside this machine have a fair bit of power between them, but not a lot of the apps most people are running will be able to properly take advantage of that power. Beside the patchy support, the AMD FirePros are pretty powerful to be going in such a small case. They generate a lot of heat, and unlike most graphics cards, aren't cooled by dedicated fans attached to the PCBs. Because of the cramped case and lackluster cooling, a good chunk of these Mac's graphics have ended up overheating and dying over time. It's an especially common problem on the D700 chips, which were designed to run hotter than all of the others. D700 machines are now especially hard to find. I've got a D500 machine, which is probably the safe option these days. Performance is not half bad for a 2013 computer, and running Windows 10 through Boot Camp is a great idea if you want to play some games. For £190 odd, it's generally a lot more powerful than you'd expect. It's impossible to ignore how CPU and GPU support is very dodgy across the board though. Dual GPUs are not really a safe bet in 2025, and remember, half the software you want to run might not work due to the lack of AVX2 support on this computer's Xeon CPU. Let's look at OS support on this Mac Pro. It launched with 2013's OS 10.9 Mavericks, and Apple actually supported it for 8 years in total, with its final upgrade being to macOS Monterey in 2021. Monterey runs pretty much flawlessly on this thing, as you can see, but it's not really a new operating system. Its last security patch came in 2024, meaning you're vulnerable to attacks if you use the internet a lot. It is possible to patch this Mac Pro up to the latest version of macOS using the OpenCore Legacy Patcher though. You just download the patcher tool, select one of the more recent macOS versions, and Bob's your uncle. Unfortunately, there are a lot of reports from users suggesting macOS 15 Sequoia doesn't work very well on this machine at all. People talk about glitches, feature support issues, and downright slowness. I don't want to risk it if I'm honest, so I've just decided to patch mine up to macOS Ventura and leave it at that. I'd say go further at your own risk. It's a new enough OS for the time being, so I can get by. The apparent issues in running Sequoia on the 2013 Mac Pro just echo the CPU and GPU problems I've already talked about. If you're planning on using one of these as your main machine, you really need to consider whether your apps will run on the very slightly older OS and very outdated hardware. Things aren't looking too good in 2025. Alright, but let's not forget, I did get this computer for about 5% of its original price. That is absurd, really. So what else do you get for the money? Well, the 2013 Mac Pro has up to 64GB of DDR3 memory on board, running at 1866 MHz. You can actually put 4 32GB sticks in to give it 128 gigs, but that'll force the system to almost half the speed down to 1066 MHz. I'll be sticking with 64GB, which is more than enough for almost any purpose on one of these computers. There's only one space for storage inside this computer, which was an unpopular design feature at the time. It uses PCIe Blade SSD storage on a proprietary slot, similar but not the same as M2. Although proprietary Apple SSDs were and are pretty expensive, you can get adapters for these things so you can put regular M2 SSDs inside. I've got one inside this Mac Pro, meaning I now have a terabyte of storage on a crucial P2 drive. While it is faster than the original storage would have been, it's not by much. The storage speed is limited by the slot, as opposed to the speed of the drive you would put in said slot. If you want more storage on one of these, you either have to upgrade the main drive like this, or use an external one through a Thunderbolt 2 or USB 3 port. You won't be getting very up-to-date speeds, but it's not a very up-to-date machine. The older Mac Pro 5.1 from 2010 to 2012 easily has the upper hand in terms of storage. You can fit up to 6 SATA drives into the bay near the top of that machine, and you can get SSD adapters for the several free PCIe slots for a total of around 10 to 12 internal drives at a stretch. The Mac Pro 5.1 does seem like a pretty good alternative to this machine actually. Those can be bought for around half the price of the 2013 these days, and you can fit pretty much any modern graphics card that you desire into them, which is another big plus. The 5.1 also has 5 times the cooling power, meaning with any luck, your components won't die heat death. So that's the 2013 Trash Can Mac Pro in 2025. I'll do a comparison video where I look into performance very soon, as it's interesting to see whether it might beat my upgraded 5.1 Mac Pro in any area. I also want to compare it to Apple's Silicon, especially in terms of price. So get subscribed if you'd like to see more on this thing. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you especially to my Patreon members, who you can join from $2.99 a month. I'll see you all next week.